Guys, Chiori just dropped and we are going to watch Gacha Gamer's video because I'm going to review his review before pulling my Chiori. Hopefully we will get her, but let's see if it's worth it. Because usually I watch these guys, because he puts the money, he puts the effort. I think it's worth just watching if you are going to invest your primogens or whatever. So let's see what he has to say.
So, Chiori is the new 5-star Geo Sword unit who specializes in off-field damage while you're busy playing with your main damage dealer. She's a
So she says a sub DPS.
fairly
Okay.
simple unit when it comes to her playstyle, but there are a couple of things that make her unique. So let's first take a look at her personal damage. For now, she's equipped with a fully refined
What is this Harbinger of Dawn? This is a 3-star weapon, guys. What the fuck? Okay. Refinement 5. Okay.
Harbinger of Dawn sword, but later on it will be compared to Cinnabar Spindle, Festering Desire, and her signature sword, while her main artifact set for this showcase is going to be Golden Troop.
Golden Troop, I would say it was the Golden Husk from Ito set. Why Golden Troop? Maybe for the skill? Maybe.
Honestly, Husk of Opulent Dreams is not that far behind, and I just use Golden Troop because of stronger substats. Also, keep in mind all of her talents are dual scaling with attack and defense.
Okay, so you are going to need attack and defense percentage for the artifacts.
So that's why she has defense stance, because it's a bit better stat for her. And finally, all of her talents are max level 10 and she's Constellation 0. Now, just to quickly show her solo potential, her burst deals a single AoE attack which results in about 33,000 damage, and it costs 50 energy. So pretty cheap, but probably the best thing about it is that it's really pretty, subjectively speaking. Still, the majority of her
I don't think it's very pretty, the ultimate. It's just like she just does a Kazuha damage, but weaker because there's no elemental combustions, combinations.
damage comes from the skill. Just like with Kaching or Alhaitham, you can select where you want to teleport, and then she does this 25k damage slash attack. And more importantly, this doll called Tomoto shows up. Every 3.6 seconds, it will deal about
Okay, we have a cute doll. Okay.
13,700 damage, and this will happen for a total of 5 times over 16-second duration. So, taking into consideration all the other 5 stars released in the past, her solo potential without teammates is pretty much what you would expect, and she does
Like pretty much nothing. That's what we would expect. Pretty much fucking nothing.
possess decent raw damage potential. But here's where things get interesting. Thanks to her first passive talent, when Chiori uses her skill, she has a small timing window where you can decide to either press the attack button or skill. If you press attack, she gains Geo Infusion for 5 seconds and then proceeds.
Which, by the way, is not worth it. The Joy Infusion is not worth it. You should always go for the skill. Always go for the fucking skill to change into another character in order to do your combination. So Arataki, Ito, Zhongli, whatever it is.
Needs to hit like a wet noodle because nothing else in her kit amplifies her normal attacks.
I told you.
So forget about it. But if you instead press the skill again, she will immediately switch to the next character, and now a second doll can be potentially deployed. You see, this will only happen if there's another Geo Construct on the field, or if one is created when the first doll is active.
Geo Construct is like that boulder, Zhongli pillar, Albedo's flower, I think Dead Girls, the wall where you can throw Geo shit. I don't remember her name. The tall girl with a lot of money with the jade chamber in the air. You know, guys, you know. Those are Geo Construct. And I think Ushi from Arataki was a Geo Construct as well. I might not. But that's kind of what it is.
But most important of all, when you switch to the next character, no matter who attacks afterwards, for 8 seconds, the dolls can unleash a coordinated attack every 2 seconds, but only for a total of 2 times. However, the damage is pretty good, not gonna lie, and all you gotta do is to make sure to hit with normal charge plunging attack with anyone to trigger the coordinated attack.
So just imagine you do her skill, you do ultimate, you switch Arataki, Ushi, ultimate, then bam 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 bam. That's basically the gameplay. And you can just buff before with gore or whatever.
attack. Oh, and one more thing, because of her second passive talent, she gains 20% geo damage buff for 20 seconds when anyone creates a geo construct, so expect this to be always active on her when playing in geo teams. But that's pretty much her entire rotation. Do the burst, then skill, and switch out to let her dolls do the rest of the work. In a fully built geo team with
Yeah, as I told you, this would be a very good team for him. Zhongli, Arataki, Goro and Chiori. Goro for the Constellation 6 buff critical damage, Chiori off field. DPS, Arataki main DPS with the constructs, right? And Zhongli shield whatever. Stun, burst, buff with Noblesse Oblige.
C6 Goro buffs, it takes about 4.5 seconds of Chiori's field time to set up the whole rotation, and then for the next 16 seconds, while the dolls last, she will unleash a total of 486,000 damage. I wish my Goro was C0 so his C6 wouldn't provide a huge critical damage buff, but it is what it is. However, Chiori's damage is still pretty good for a Geo unit. Now, if we take a look at her damage breakdown,
This was this coordinated attack, burst, skill. So those do the most damage in Chiori. So you will pretty much want the golden skill artifacts, I guess, not the husk, I guess.
you can see here that her dolls make up a total of 50% of her entire damage, while the two coordinated attacks make up 22%, and that the burst is responsible for 16% and skill slash attack for 12% of her entire damage output. Basically, her skill, when fully utilized, makes up the majority of her damage output. It's her entire identity, and no matter what your opinion is about playing with dollies, they are her lifeline. In fact, let me tell you everything about these dolls. And starting with energy generation, it's pretty random. The dolls will generate particles up to 5 times, and usually it will be 1 particle, maybe sometimes 2, but it's a pretty low chance, so expect on average 5 to 7 particles. And there's also a cooldown between particles, so even if there's 2 dolls hitting the enemy at the same time, it's just hard-coded to provide particles every
Okay, so the energy generation is not good. But I would say the rotation is Zhongli, Pillar, Ultimate, Goro, Ultimate E, Chiori, Q, E again into Arataki, Ultimate, whatever, right? So that would be the combo.
3.6 seconds. Next, targeting. It's pretty easy. You don't need to hit the enemy. The dolls have a mind of their own and will just attack anybody who gets close to them. Which brings us to range. It's not big, I would say medium at best. You can see me even pushing the doll to find the maximum range, which is pretty funny that they can be moved around. And speaking of being a pushover, durability is good. The dolls do not count as constructs, which means the
Oh, that means that they cannot be distracted, I bet. If they are not constructs, they won't be destroyed. Like the pillar or whatever. It's like a boss. It hits them with some charge attack or whatever.
stupid 3 construct limit does not apply to them, and compared to Albedo's flower, they will not get destroyed by enemy attacks.
I told
At least
you, I
Mago
told
Kenki
you.
wasn't able to do it, and you can even summon them on Oceanit's floor, no problemo. I mean, look at poor Albedo trying to do the same, and instead he just generates one more doll for Chiori. That's foreshadowing of what's to come later in this video. Now, AoE is pretty bad, basically non-existent. I tried forcing these big hunks of junk to stay together, and one time it worked. You can see here both of them getting hit with one single doll attack,
Okay.
but the enemies will need to be almost on top of each other for this to happen, unless you use animal units for grouping, which I suspect won't be a popular choice. But yeah, in a nutshell, these dolls are super chill. They will do their job and they won't disappoint you.
I mean, they are cool, right? This is some dolls, some pets or whatever.
The damage is good and it scales well with other buffs. However, one important thing to mention would be the fact that her skill does not snapshot. To me, that was a pretty shocking discovery because this means she will not be able to utilize Goro's defense and Geo boost buff from the skill when she's off field. Not to mention, Benny's circle also fizzles out in potential, since now only her burst and initial skill hit will be boosted. However, Goro still remains her best buffer because his passive when burst is activated still provides defense boost, and of course, his C6 still remains active even when she's off field. Overall, when looking at her personal potential with just the Harbinger of Dawn, she's a low complexity unit that can deliver decent amount of supportive damage. But the big question is, how good is she with other weapons? And is she better than Albedo? Well, let's find out. Okay, here's the plan. Harbinger of Dawn's baseline damage has been already established, so we're going to compare it to 3 other options: Festering Desire, Cinnabar Spindle, and the new 5-star signature weapon, Uraku Misugi.
I would assume Festering Desire is better than Cinnamon. I don't know why, but I would assume. Because Festering Desire is a very good weapon, which not a lot of people have, but you know. But I don't know why. People would say Cinnamon would be better, but I would say Festering will be better. Let's see.
I don't know. And starting off with good old Festering Desire, surprisingly, the majority of its damage is about the same as Harbinger of Dawn's. But if we take into account that you'll need more critical rate substats, it ends up about dealing 10% less damage. However,
What?
it does provide energy
What? Yeah, energy recharge is important, guys, for ultimates.
recharge from the substat, which means Chiori will be able to very easily burst every rotation. Overall, this old event weapon is not something to worry about if you don't have it, because Harbinger of Dawn will be better in most cases, unless you run into those Rift Hounds. Now, Cinnabar Spindle, that's a different story. This weapon gave me a headache when I was trying to understand its passive's logic, because it states that it will provide 80% defense buff for elemental skill damage every 1.5 seconds, but the thing is, it felt so random. Sometimes both doll hits would benefit from the buff, other times just one doll, so it was pretty random, but ultimately, it ended up beating both previous weapons with a chunky 21.
Oh, I was wrong. I was so fucking wrong. Okay. Okay, respect.
1% overall damage increase. I don't know, my methods of testing might be flawed here because I just repeated the rotation with roughly the same loadout. But brace yourselves, because the signature weapon completely demolishes its competition and ends up dealing about 45% better damage than Harbinger. Again, I tried my best to just record a scenario where all hits count as critical hits, and this was the result. Don't quote me as a reliable source, this was field testing data, so the crits wouldn't be as consistent as with Harbinger of Dawn. However, I mean geez, this damage gap is pretty disgusting, not gonna lie. I tell ya, this weapon is tailor-made for Chiori, if you know what I mean. But should you pull for it?
Good
nah,
job.
the weapon banner is a scam, but it's a really nice vertical investment, at least from my own experience. Overall, this testing with all 4 weapons was done with a full Geo team with C6 Goro, and some of the buffs for her do wear off before the 2 final hits from each stall, so it's very possible a better rotation could be found for the weapons to beat Signature's big advantage, and of course, it's still just early impressions that I'm providing you guys here with, so take everything you saw here with a huge grain of salt. I just found this to be very interesting and wanted to share with you all. Also, there are other weapons that Chiori can definitely utilize, like Fontaine's Craftable and Battle.
Nah, guys, these weapons are not good. Let's skip this shit.
I mean, look, it's no secret if you watch my channel, I feature him in a lot
Albedo, fuck
of
Albedo.
shit mess. But
He's gonna be worse anyway. Best Chiori teams, let's see.
team archetypes I found Chiori to be good at. First one is obviously a mono geo comp with either Ito or Noelle. The tricky part here is that if you want to play with Noelle and you don't bring someone else who can create a construct, since Goro, Noelle, and Chiori do not have constructs, the second doll will not be generated unless you shell out your Primogems for her first constellation, because now, if you use her skill, it's enough to just have another Geo unit for the doll to appear immediately. Sure, it also provides 50% bigger AoE for the dolls, but the big selling point here if you want to pull for C1 is that she can deploy second doll without relying on constructs. Otherwise, if you just play her in Ito Geo comp, she will provide a good amount of off-field Geo damage. And you can of course mix in one other element unit like Mona, Benny, or Furina, just to name a few, while Goro, Ito, and Chiori remain in the team. But going with Zhongli for extra resistance shred and reliable shielding is going to do wonders both for Chiori and either Ito or Noelle. Well, especially Noelle, since now the pillar can help summon a second doll. I mean, in the end, it's a mono Geo comp that does pretty well in the Korean Abyss. Now, another variation would be double Geo with either Navia or Geo Traveler. Obviously, Navia is the stronger choice. However, again, if Chiori doesn't have the first constellation enabled, Navia will not be able to help Chiori generate the second doll, while Geo Traveler can easily do that with one of those chunky boulders or even Burst, since they all count as constructs. And on top of that, Chiori's second passive will not activate with Navia because, well, her Gunbrella does not generate constructs, just pure pain for enemies. Also, double Geo Albedo and Chiori can work pretty nicely, like in a similar manner how Yelan and Xingqiu work together, just not as powerful. So it's pretty cool to see this new archetype. Finally, you could also just use Chiori as a solo Geo unit in any team comp where you want additional off-field damage support. It will be only one doll, and she will be missing out on a bunch of buffs she could otherwise utilize in Geo comps, so take that into consideration. At the end of the day, she's an off-field damage unit that shines best with other Geo units, especially if they can create constructs. So more or less, you want her to be in Geo-centric team.
Okay, let's see before we are watching the conclusion. Chiori is going to be like an S tier character on A tier character, right? Because of she's off field. Depending on what characters you have Goro, you have Arataki, Chiori, and maybe Navia or Zhongli. It's good. If you don't have like at least Arataki or Navia with Goro C6 and a weapon, a Cinnamon. I don't have Cinnamon, I don't have the 30 star level 9, I don't have the signature. Guys, I think she's not worth it for me. For me, right now, it's not worth it because I don't have Primo Gems enough. I don't know, guys. Maybe if I pull the weapon, maybe she's gonna be worth it otherwise.
Teams, if you want to get the best Primo buck out of her. So what do I think about Chiori? I think that she's in a pretty bad situation right now.
True, I told
Arlecchino
you.
just got announced as the upcoming 4.6 unit. I asked you guys if you're pulling for her, and well, the results speak for themselves. I mean, we even have Nuvolette and Kazuha coming up in the second phase, so she's really in a tough spot. And look, I personally love her playstyle, and that mostly has to do with the fact that I love Albedo, in a platonic way of course. I'm not gonna beat around the bush and pretend they don't share a lot of similarities, but as I said before, I'm also not ready to declare that Albedo is power crept by Chiori, because if you haven't noticed, she kinda depends on other Geo units, while Albedo can just chill out by himself and deal pretty much the same damage no matter who you're playing with. Unless of course we're talking about Goro, who boosts both of them really well, especially at C6. And sure, Albedo still wants that Geo Resonance to function well, but at least half of his damage potential isn't locked behind the requirement for someone to produce a construct. And here's the thing, I don't like Chiori's first constellation at all. Feels a bit of a bait that she can have two dolls when playing in double Geo Navia team. But on the other hand, this also kinda makes her look not that ridiculous when compared to Albedo. But for what it's worth, I think she's a fun character, and again, subjectively speaking, she has one of the best burst animations in the game, in my humble opinion. But there's definitely some questionable things happening with her, and I will most likely make a follow-up video in the future to share my post-release thoughts. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I would really appreciate...
Yeah, let's give this guy a like. You give him a subscribe. And yeah, I would say if you don't have the weapon, you don't have the characters, and you cannot get C1, she might not be worth it. Just saying, don't kill the messenger, don't kill messenger, kill me Hoyo. See ya later.